But before I go into this topic, just a few brief words about who we are. So we are Digital Innovation Hub Agrifood Croatia. As of course the name says, we are based in Croatia and we are dealing with technology and food. We are a bunch of people who are very good at organizing people around projects, topics, and problems. So we do a lot of innovation projects and problem-solving projects, which are, Horizon Europe funded, or national EU funding, or national other sources of funding, or private sector funding. We are a bit different in how we operate than your Galician DIH, is that we don't pile up a lot of members, and we don't focus on members in the sense of solving their issues or their problem, but we are working with pretty much everybody around the ecosystem, and where we see that there is really an important issue, and then there is players or stakeholders that you can work with, and that they are that you can make some project around it or find a solution, then we hop on it. And we try to connect really good and proactive people together to do some sort of lighthouse projects and really kind of piloting stuff, so that everybody else can see what's working and not, and then maybe apply it to their own problems. And then we are working a lot with aquaculture. That's one of our main focuses. I mean, we do also things with land-based food production, but we whenever we can, we do aquaculture. So for today, to talk about sea brim, which is becoming, or it actually is a huge problem in Mediterranean mussel production. I don't know if it's a big deal in Galicia, and hope not, but in Croatia, Italy, some parts of France, I'm not sure about Spain, but with producers we talked in these Mediterranean countries, including Greece, are having a big issue with the predation of this fish for mussels in all stages of production. So today about the problem itself, and then what has been done so far, some ideas that were tested in projects and in real life, and what we are actually working on now, how to use some digital stuff or new technology to maybe at least lower the problem, if not solve it completely. It's of course fish which in nature eats mussels and other bottom growing creatures. It's not a predator that hunts other fish, but it eats crabs, mussels, these kind of things. And of course, now that mussel farming is providing a lot of free food for it, it kind of adapts to that environment and takes advantage of it in not a good way for mussel farmers, but I guess in a great way for the fish as a species. There were some micro locations that had complete losses due to huge schools of this fish predating on mussels, because you can imagine this fish, when there is plenty of food, lives in schools, so you can have a few tons of fish at one location, and sometimes these fish are really huge, up to 5 kilos, for example, and they have huge jaw that just crushes everything. and for them mussels is just really nothing, and they just come in and really do this. And this is just an example. It's a smaller fish in the photos, but you can imagine then when comes a school of really big fish, they behave like wolves, and they usually don't stop until they completely eat everything what's in their range. So you can imagine mussel farmers not being very happy with this fish. So far, what's been done around Europe, including Croatia, is basic stuff, of course. First that comes into mind to everybody when we talk about this is, why don't you fish them out? Well, it is a good idea, and people do try. But the problem is that because of all these installations in the sea, especially when we're talking about long line systems, which are more complex or bigger in size, and they provide very good shelter for the fish. So it's very hard to kind of get them surrounded by a net or something like this. And some other fishing tools did not show very great results. So some fish trapping or some long line fishing, these kind of things, they do provide some success, but in comparison to their numbers, it's really insignificant. The fishing is still going on, but still it's not solving the problem. Another thing that was tested was done by Fremer in France, also by Institute of Oceanography in Croatia. I don't know if maybe there are some other examples, but I know for those two, they try to scare them off with sound. Because of course, being a fish, afraid of different kind of sounds, expecting predators or something else, usually, of course, when you try to approach fish, you also know that they always kind of escape from any noises unfamiliar. And in the projects that were done, the results were really good in the beginning, because the fish were really moving away. But then they show one of their from the mussel farmer point of view, not so good trait is that they are very fast learners. So what happened is the fish learned or figured out that no danger is coming from this sound. So after maybe 50 times, they figure out, of course, that sound is not a threat. So they started to ignore it. So just putting random sounds into the sea, in just playing it in different kind of opportunities, did not provide adequate protection. But we will come back to the topic. And then, of course, different kinds of cages, nets, different kind of protections were also tested. You can see one in the photo. This black thing surrounding the mussels is to a certain point effective when there are smaller fishes trying to attack the mussels, and when the big ones come, of course, they just kind of chew through everything. And also the issue with this kind of nets and other that I'll show you in a bit is the biofouling. So whenever you put something like this into the sea, there's always some kind of organism that wants to attach to it and call it a home. And then if you have nets like this with sort of a small holes, they clog up very fast, which then prevents mussels from feeding and kind of creates another problem for farmers. So here you can see another application of these kind of nets, rigid plastic nets that were so widely used in the Mediterranean in long line systems to prevent predation. And in Some cases they did provide successful, especially when smaller fish are involved. But then, as you can see in the photos, in the photo after, this is what happens when you have big fish come in. They just kind of ignore this protective net and just chew through everything, and you get left out of your mussels. On the right photo, you can see it's a sample of a cage that's been produced in France, and it's used both on bouchot systems with the poles in the shallow water, but also for long line systems in the open water. And it's pretty much a rigid cage that goes around mussels, and it's very effective against sea bream. They didn't figure out still the way to break it or get in. But the issue with it is that it is not easy to handle, because it's very big and rigid, and it's a lot of manipulation. Also, you need to think of biofouling when you use this, and the price. It's an expensive thing, and mussel is not a very highly prized product, so it's always a question if we can bear the cost. And on the left, you can just see the regular way of one of the ways of long lining, using a long line system to grow mussels with pergolari, which is used mostly in Italy, Croatia, Greece. That's been chewed on by sea bream, so you just have some mussels left, but most of it gone. This is a system we've been testing with some farmers in Croatia, and it's some sort of nets like before, but then we applied these rigid rings within nets to try to prevent fish from just being able to push these nets and chew on the mussels. And so far it's been almost completely effective. There were some examples when we did lose some mussels, but it significantly improved the survival rate, and the pricing is in a range where it can be acceptable for the farmers. So now we're still waiting to see at the end of the cycle of mussel growth how much biofouling is going to be on them, and is it going to be easy to clean it off and use it again, because in that case of course, we don't create a garbage because we reuse the stuff, and also then the price of the whole system is much better because you reuse it for a few years at least. And then these new approaches and then this digital kind of technology stuff comes in. What we researched and see that works in some other applications around the world for some other species or some other problems is using air bubbles to try to create some sort of a fence around the area that you are growing your mussels in, because this is something that fish don't feel comfortable passing through. So it's usually used in rivers or in, let's say, thermal plants, water intakes, and these kind of canals and things like this, where you want to block fish from passing through, whether it be invasive species or just want to prevent fish to come into your cooling, system in the plant and destroying your equipment. In this same context, use of strobe lights. We've seen some good success with this because it frightens the fish. Again, needs to be tested to see if it learns, like with the sound, after a while, that it does not create danger, or it still stays scared of the strobe light. Then one thing that we tested briefly and not for a longer period is a moving light. So the difference between strobe light and moving light is you have a single point of light like a flashlight, and then you move it physically. because then it creates a really big confusion for the fish. It's something that it's not used to seeing in the nature. Strobe lighting, similar to like lightning, maybe it gets used to it, but the moving light is really freaking the fish out, because we've seen it for when the fishermen use it when they surround the fish by a net. If it's evening or night, they put these kind of lights into the sea and kind of jiggle it, and then fish goes crazy because of it. And another thing we are now developing a project for is to use sound that's triggered by fish being actually there. Because projects that were done so far used the sound in random. They were not waiting for some system to detect that the fish is at the farm and then try to scare it off, but they were just, shooting the sound, randomly. And then the idea behind this is that if we're just triggering sound when the fish is there, it will take much longer for it to learn that it's not a threat. So that maybe, and then rotating the sounds may be, good enough to affect it. And then the last one that we are really putting our hope in is that we want to put in sonars in specific locations to be able to detect when the fish is actually there. And the reason why we want to know it is, of course, to use the sound and maybe scare it off. And even more important in Croatian case is that we want to be able to go and then fish through the nets or whatever other means of fishing people would like to use to actually try to decrease the population. Because our kind of view on this topic is that we can scare them off to a certain point, but at some point they will still be hungry and they will, I guess, disregard everything and come and eat at some farm. So if we just scare them off, they will just, postpone or move the problem elsewhere. So being able to detect them and then either scare them off if it's not practical or go and fish for them, that we see as a problem that, or the solution that can solve the problem for good. And this is one image of how this using multi-beam sonar can kind of detect the fish. This is us filming school of fish inside a fish farming net. And this is just an image from a video, but then in a video you can actually see the fish moving, and you can use machine learning AI capabilities to be able to distinguish if it's this or that kind of fish, if it's in a school or single fish, how big is it. So you can teach the software to send you a warning exactly when you actually need it, not if it's a school of bait fish or some other fish, but really saying, okay, this is then sea bream and it's big enough to make problems, go and do something about it. And the other picture is of this system that I mentioned, where you can see on sort of a left part of the photo is a strobe light, like a string of strobe lights, and then it's a piece of air bubble producing system, and then the black things are the speakers. And they put this kind of as a single system in this case in the river, but maybe it would be effective also in some areas, especially shallow areas or narrow areas, for getting the sea bream not to eat your mussels. We are also applying a lot of sensorics that was mentioned before today to also help, of course, farmers, to know the parameters and what's best working for the farms, but also to see if we can correlate some of the parameters to actually a sea bream activity. So, to try to pinpoint using even that, the timing or the locations where, we could do most damage to their population, because I guess the climate change and all the mussel farming is really doing good for the sea bream. because their population in Mediterranean is increasing. A lot of the other fish are being overfished or decreased in population, but the sea bream is actually doing very well. And another reason, of course, being that there's always some number of escapees from fish farming systems, so that does not help also for the mussel farmers. That's me in short, and then of course for questions or future topics, I'm here for you.